Well, hello everyone. This is Paul Feuerstein, the editor-in-chief of Dentistry Today, and I'm in Massachusetts, and I'm here with a dear friend in Massachusetts, Dr. Martin Kaplan. Martin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Oh, it's a fall day here. It's kind of cold all of a sudden. We've been having hot weather, now it's cold weather.
I got my
Yeah,
sweater on. I'm in the basement right now.
I see. So anyway, so I got to meet Martin through a laser company, which is called Light Scalpel Laser Company. And we've been talking about some very interesting things that I'd say 99% of you out there are not doing. And so Martin is a pediatric dentist. He has quite a glorious career. And I'm just going to say this to you, Martin. God bless you for what you're going to tell us all about.
Okay, thanks.
So why don't you give us a little bit of your journey and where'd you start and sort
You
of
want
lead
me,
into what we want to talk about today.
you want me to go when I was born or when I decided to become a
Well, I
dentist?
know you were born in a log cabin that you helped to build
Yeah,
yourself, right?
I did. It was next to Abraham Lincoln. But yeah, I went to Tufts Dental School. I was in the 3-year program back in I was in the 75 class. Went into pediatric dentistry at Montefiore in New York in 1975 to 77. And then, I started out on my own. But my laser journey started in about 2003 when after I'd actually been using air abrasion for a while, I wanted to find another way to do things differently besides bonding and all the other stuff that I would do. And in pediatric dentistry, I was actually treating a lot of kids with bottle caries and special needs kids and adults, and that was really rewarding. But I wanted to find something new to do because it's the same old way of doing things. So I came across actually a laser class at Tufts and took a laser class. It was like a 1-day course, learned about lasers. It's kind of funny because in one day I got certified by the Academy of Laser Dentistry on a
Yeah.
hot dog, and I was certified on all laser wavelengths, and it kind of started my journey. And then so from there, I joined an organization, started to learn more, and then I was I was exposed to the idea of treating kids with tongue ties, and I was doing a lot of that stuff on my own, but it wasn't babies because they were having eating problems or lisping problems or kids with diastemas between their front teeth when they were older. And I found out that I could do this with a diode laser, which I thought was a really cool thing to do because this quote was a laser. Differently
That
than
was pretty.
that.
That's like a hot wire, though.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know that. And actually,
Right,
they
right. That's all we knew. Yeah.
yeah, so it's actually no different than electrosurgery, but they were claiming there's an 810 wavelength and a 1064 and all these other ones. And it really doesn't matter what the wavelength is, because like you were saying, when you have a hot tip, it's a hot tip. It doesn't matter because it comes out at about 1,000 degrees Celsius. And I was having a lot of success with kids, and I started in 2004 treating babies, and I was having a lot of success with it, but I was really kind of concerned that the laser tip, which has a glass fiber, would almost be like a mechanical pencil. And if you lean on a mechanical pencil, the lead breaks. Well, the little fiber could break on that diode laser also. But it bothered me for all I learned about laser physics. You're talking about using a laser beam. This wasn't a beam. You had to do something. Yeah, it was called
Tip itself. You
mechanical
had to use the tip
tip.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah, so the tip had to touch the tissue, and when the tip was on, it'd be a little delay before the tissue would change. It's kind of like the analogy would be like if you open up, crack an egg over a frying pan. It takes a while for the clear albumin to turn white, so there's a delay how that tissue would respond. So essentially, you were doing a burn. They were teaching at the time that if you used the pulsing, it wasn't going to be the same because it would pulse on and off, but you have thermal heat that's coming out, radiant heat, and it never goes from 1,000 degrees to zero. It may go down to 800 before it pulses again. And then I came across after several years a light scalpel company and I thought this guy like Peter, who actually was a part owner in light scalpel with a CO2 laser. I thought he was like my latest, greatest used car salesman trying to sell me something. But he explained a lot of the stuff about physics that kind of popped in my head and made sense. So he offered me the idea of trying his laser on babies, and he sent one to me. But in the meantime, over the past years, I had 3 erbiums, 3 diodes, a low-level laser. So I had a lot of experience with all this. And I spoke to him with kind of like a chip on my shoulder. I sat down and I started, treat a 5-month-old baby at the time. And the damn thing worked so well that it actually scared me, because instead of it taking 20 or 30 seconds for a tongue, it was literally 3 to 5 seconds. And
that's the amazing thing about this whole.
Yeah, I mean,
time is of essence with a baby.
Yeah, but it was crazy. And the kids, by the way, don't get any topical anesthesia, because if the kids are under a certain age and a certain weight, there's a potential for methanohemoglobinemia, and they could have a blood clot. And, I don't want to worry about a blood clot. I actually treated a baby a few weeks ago, was 6 weeks old, was 3 weeks past open heart surgery, had a stroke in utero, was on seizure meds and blood thinners. And I had to help them. They were referred to me by Children's Hospital. They were cleared by cardiology and hematology because he was having so much struggle eating that his heart was still racing, and we did treatment on him. He's doing a lot better since. And go ahead.
I was just going to ask you a question about this. So with this under 10 seconds or less, post-op must be much easier for the kids too.
Post-op is easy because it goes shallow. The radiant heat of, let's say, a diode laser. A lot of people get angry and say, well, I got a laser. It doesn't matter. All lasers are the same. They're not all the same. You don't want to have a diode laser do eye surgery on you. You'll be blind. When you have LASIK eye surgery, it's a laser, but it does things in certain pulses. So this laser goes down about 50 microns per pulsing at 25 milliseconds per pulse. The chromophore for it is water, so it only seeks out water. And it vaporizes it real quick, where a diode laser has heat, and it heats up everything in the area. So they can say, oh, like a 1064 or an 810 is specific for a certain wavelength. It's a bunch of baloney, because it's just radiant heat. You had to do something to the tip for, so you're really not doing it. But I'm not saying you can't do some procedures, but you can do a better job, as long as you know the limitations of what the device is. So, once I realized this laser works so well, I haven't stopped using it in the past 10 years. And then it turns out, unbeknownst to me, I was the first in the country to use light scalpel on a baby, because I was figuring out the wavelengths, and not the wavelengths, but the pulsing for this at the time. And it worked out. And since then, I think there's about 1,500 to 2,000 CO2 light scalpel lasers around. But there are other lasers around too, like Solea has one out, but it's a different type of an arm. It has like a robot arm on it. And the robot arm is a little bit different. It pulses out water. This one has no water on it. It can go within a millimeter of the tissue. And
the physical form of this is much smaller too. It's thinner. It's on little wheels. I'll call it the hose. It's not the hose.
But that flexible fiber is different than that robot arm. And the robot arm has a bunch of mirrors in it. If you bounce it, the mirrors aren't going to be lined up, and you're not going to get the same.
It's a different animal. It's a different animal.
Yeah, totally different.
Light scalpel is totally different.
Yeah.
So let me jump a little bit into the clinicals. So, first of all, how do you know that a baby needs this literally at birth? That they need a frenectomy, or the lingual frenectomy, or lip frenectomy? I mean, what are the symptoms there, and what's the benefits of this?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people making unnecessary controversy about this. They'll say, the kids will fall in the future and they'll cut their lip, or sometimes their tongue will stretch. There are times where kids don't need something. It doesn't mean just because you visually see something, you need to have treatment. So you have to have some intake forms for all this stuff. And ideally, yes, you want to have a well-educated lactation consultant who helps the mother with breastfeeding, but it's not all about breastfeeding. It could be bottle feeding. The age of range of my patients are from 23 hours old. The mother literally came in from the hospital, discharged herself early to see me, because I treated 3 of her other kids, and she wanted to know whether this kid had something, and she thought he did. And the baby actually had lip, tongue, and cheek ties. And I thought the mother was wrong coming in, because I looked at the intake form and said today's date was the birthday date. But my oldest patient's 77 years old, and her migraine started to go away, and she could stand straighter after the treatment. Yeah, she was still bent over a little bit. She was 77, a few years younger than you. I mean, older than you, and a few years older than I am. And, but it all worked out well for us. So, but you have to do proper intake. So you want to know whether the kid's nursing well or clicking well. But if the kids are nursing and gaining weight, like a lot of the pediatricians may say, don't worry about it, but the mother may have a good letdown. So then you got to know about breastfeeding and whether the mother's got a good letdown. You have to know what kind of delivery it was, because there's C-section, vaginal, and other type of deliveries too. and the kid's body can be stressed. And then they may need what's called an infant chiropractor. I used to think chiropractor was hocus pocus, but it's a lot of stuff they can do to help align the kid, because they could have subluxations, they can be out of position, and you work as a team with lactation, infant chiropractor, or a physical therapist, or cranial sacral. There's a lot of this stuff. It's not one thing, which is why when we do give a class, or with Light Scalpel, it's at least a 2-day class, and it could actually be longer. But I have people come and observe me all the time just to see some of the practical stuff of it also.
Well, I mean, one of the things, one of the side, that's not really a sidebar, is that there's a whole emotional issue here going on with the baby and the mother too. If the baby is not properly suckling, things aren't happening right. It's just not going to work right.
Well, I've had kids that are failure to thrive babies, so they lose 10% of their birth weight, and we're getting them to be able to eat better afterwards. I actually work with a lactation consultant in the office who helps me. She actually is an RN, an IBCLC, International Board Certified Lactation Consultant, and works in the NICU at Children's, but she's going to be quitting Children's soon because they don't even recognize this stuff. So I see a lot of kids with failure to thrive, or they're in Pepsid and Prevacid because they, quote, say they have reflux, or they're colicky, but they don't really. They're sucking in a lot of air and they're having problems. Or there are kids that have torticollis where the head's turned to the side. The head's turned to the side because they have some tension in their neck. Could be because of the way they were delivered, but also if there's a tongue tie, the tongue is pulling up on the hyoid bone, then the omohyoid muscle picks up, they pull to the side a little bit. When you release that, their head straightens out. And then, it's not everything is tongue tied, but there's a relationship to some of it. So I ask if the kids have weepy eyes, or, and you can just see the way they're turning to the side, or they can't lay down and sleep flat because they're so gassy. There's a lot of different things.
I'm hoping, I assume that you're teaching this to some people too, as dentists, and giving classes all over the place. I know you've been all over the world, actually.
Yeah, but well, at Tufts about 9 years ago, we started the first training class on this, and then because of, quote, politics and dental schools and things, we ended up stopping it. But people coming from all over the globe to our classes, and then I started. Then Peter asked me if I wanted to get involved with this new organization, the American Laser Study Club, and then we were teaching classes. I was on the road about 15 or 16 times a year, doing teaching with other groups of people, including for older kids with oral myofunctional therapists and speech people, and eating disorders. A lot of kids that choke and gag. I've had a lot of kids that in the past, when I was in my own practice, until I stopped about 5 years ago, and I'm just doing this exclusively, I would do interceptive orthodontics and take the frame away from the diastema in the front, and also help other teeth start to erupt in. The kids wouldn't need braces. So, everybody's saying, oh, you need to have wait till after braces before you can do this stuff. You can do it earlier. And a lot of these kids with lisps are compensating, but it turns out when they work really well with you and a lactation consultant to do other things, and even sometimes a chiropractor, it helps because we work as a team. And sometimes they don't need me. If I'm looking inside and something doesn't seem right, I ask the other people to do their work. Just because I can cut something, pick a lip up, or, ablate it, doesn't mean I'm going to ablate everything in the way there. You got to get a reason to do it.
And I just have, I did a little bit of homework about you, and so this isn't going unnoticed. I mean, you've gotten some very, very nice awards. You were given some award, I think it was in Australia, for the outstanding contribution to pediatric laser dentistry and things like that.
Yeah, and I got an award from Kumar Patel 3 years ago, who has invented the carbon dioxide laser. So I got an award from him from the American Laser Study Club for being a pediatric dental educator and all this. And there's a lot of people out there doing more. And like, Richard Baxter's got a book out now called Tongue Tied, and he has people coming to see him, but he's involved in this group. And then Saru Zagi out in the West Coast, the Breathing Institute, he uses Light Scalpel now. Matter of fact, the dentist that works with him, because he's an ENT surgeon, went to one of my classes, and she now uses Light Scalpel too. And because of that, Zagi's now using it. So there's a lot of people out there using things. And for me, it's the best thing that I've ever used. I mean, I've used it.
And you mentioned Peter as the founder, owner, whatever. I'm not quite sure his position, but the reviews. I have to say that the reviews I've read on the Light Scalpel are just customer services beyond compare. They're glowing, no pun intended, glowing reports about the customer service, the training, I mean, this light scalpel CO2 laser is quite something.
Well, it's crazy. One time I thought I had a problem and I really didn't. I called him up and he's in Washington and I was in Stoughton, Mass. And the next day from UPS, I had a new laser in my front office and he took the other one back to check it out. And yeah, I mean, I had three diodes. Like if I wanted to call up, any of the dental companies, take it back and show it to somebody,
Yeah,
they
right.
didn't know what to do.
Right. Well, I'd love to talk to you for another hour here, but we're running out of time. So first of all, the company is called Light Scalpel. The simple website is lightscalpel.com. Very simple, a lot of information over there. Martin, you're just a world of information, and as I said initially, what you're doing for the young, for babies, for people, for humanity, I'll push it all the way out here.
Yeah, yeah,
And
no, it's
just
fun.
thank you.
It's really rewarding. I can't explain it. This is the best I ever thought I would ever do in dentistry, and it's been going on 50 years now.
Yeah, I mean that's our reward. I mean, people, there's different reasons to become dentists, go into dentistry, and this is obviously not an economic reward here. This is you're just doing something for humanity and the parents. I mean, I can't imagine the mothers looking at you crying and it's just great. And in general, to be honest with you, I as a GP who does not treat children right now, I always say, well, thank the Lord for pediatric dentists
Yeah,
in the
you're
world.
welcome.
Well, Martin, it's been a real pleasure talking to you,
That's
and
it.
hope everybody enjoys this. And maybe we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Right. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.